Done? Can you attain some of the questions? Hard. Can you attempt some questions? गलत हो जाएगा. So गलत हो जाएगा इसीलिए अटेंड नहीं करेंगे. Okay, no issue. So like I pointed, think about the first one. What is that? That's called as a prolixity, isn't it? So when you talk about the prolixity, so what do you find out? Here the root word is what? That called as a lix. Lix, which means called as a speak or speech, right? Isn't it? So what is the direction pointed here? The direction says that you need to find out the same meaning, right? Now in that case, we need to find out one of the option which will indicate about speech, right or not? When I talk about prolixity, so we say lix is called as a speak. It means we talk about word or speech. In that case, if I find out the option, prolixity means called as somebody who speak a lot, right? So on the basis of that, you would find out 4 options are there. One is called as a levity, right? So when you talk about levity means what? That's something called as a lack of seriousness, isn't it? So levity is called as a lack of seriousness. If I look into the second one is called as emancipation, right? So what do you mean by emancipation? The meaning of emancipation is called as a freedom, right? And if you look into the third one, that's something called as a lucidity. The word lucidity taken from LUC, right? LUM, LUS. So what is that? LUC, LUM, LUS is indicating something which is a clarity or clear, right? Like you can say that lucent, LUCENT. You talk about luminous, LUMINOUS, luminous. You also talk about lustrous, illustration, right? In that case, all these words are nothing but considered as the root word, isn't it? So here also if you talk about that, lucidity, the meaning of lucidity would be clarity, clear or clarity. So you can talk about the sentence where you use lucidity is called as the lucidity of the water, right? Seems purity and can be called as without having any germ into it, isn't it? That can be called as a kind of a sentence you use with lucidity. So, but lucidity cannot be called as a meaning of prolixity. The word prolixity is called as a word, means wordy, speaking a lot. So we find out the word called as a verbosity. The word verbosity also to have a root word that called as a verb, right? The meaning of verb is called as a to add, right? To add one more information or to add information. Therefore, we can talk about prolixity could be called as a verbosity. Understood my point? Now, coming to the second one is called as a annihilation. Annihilation. Now, if I talk about annihilation, the root word of the annihilation, I hope you know the word annihilation means. That called as a, means in general we talk about destruction, right? You can also talk about that decimated or destruction, or you talk about devastated, isn't it? Now, on the basis of that, what is the root word of annihilation? That is known as a nihil, right? Annihilation, nihilistic, nihilism, right or not? The word nihil means also indicating that harm or destruction. So here you would find out couple of words are given, that's called as a obliteration, innovation, circumnavigation and approbation, right? Now if I talk about obliteration, so obliterate is also known as a destruction, right? Obliterate. The root word you can find out here means ob, up, right? Up means against, right? Or called as up means obdurate, obstacle, oblivion, right? Something which is not exist, isn't it? So in that case, obliteration can be called as one of the answer to this. But at the same time, we do have the means other words like innovation. What is that word innovation? Innovation is called as something which is newly created. So here also you find out the root word is known as a nov, N-O-V. Like you can say that novelty, isn't it? Or you talk about novice, N-O-V-I-C-E. So innovate or innovative or innovation. So something called as introducing the new ideas, new idea or new ideas. So that can be called as innovate, right? Can be meaning of the annihilation? No, right? Moving to the next one. The next one is called as a circumnavigation. Try to remember how it is done, how we draw the meaning of the word. Circumnavigation. We talk about circumnavigation is called as circumstances, circumference, isn't it? So circumstances, isn't it? So, and when you talk about navigate is called as a direction. So circumnavigation is called as a circumference or circumnavigation means you can say that all side direction, isn't it? All side direction. Next is called as a approbation, right? When you talk about approbation is what? That called as a probe, P-R-O-B, right? So approbation is called as a approval, right or not? Like probe is called as a true, right? Probability, right or not? Possibility. So probation. So approval and approbation. Both are something called as accepting, isn't it? Now, next is called as so here we find out the word is called as annihilation is nothing but obliteration, isn't it? Similar to that, if you talk about the word called as a neophyte is the next. So, what do you mean by neophyte? If you talk about the word neophyte, neo means what? Something which is new, right? Neophyte is called as something which is new. In that case, you can talk about novice is the new, amateur, it's called as a beginner, right or not? So here you would find out the word neophyte, like the neophyte doesn't know how to do or how to accomplish a certain thing, as they have the neophyte has no expertise onto it. So in that case, we understood the meaning of neophyte is called as a treasure, right, or beginner, right. So what are the words are there? Psychopath. So when we talk about the word called as a psycho means referring to mental, and path is called as a emotion. So psychopath is nothing but somebody who have a mental emotion or mental illness, isn't it? Always remember that when you find out any of the word and you try to know the meaning of that word, your job is to segregate the word into different form. Like you find out the prefix, you find out the root, you find out the suffix, isn't it? So prefix, root and suffix helps you what? To draw the meaning of the word, right? You need to remember the root word, right? So you need to remember the prefix, you need to remember the suffix. Let's say that if I say possible, what do you say the root means prefix of it? Impossible. Impossible. Im is called as a prefix, in is called as a prefix, experience, inexperience, right? You can say that misbehave, misappropriate, misanthrope, what do we say that? Philanthropic, misanthropist, right or not? Philanthropist, misanthropist, miss. So on all this case, you would find out the prefix helps you to draw the meaning. Root word helps you to draw the meaning. Suffix helps you to means somehow decipher the meaning, isn't it? So here also, if you talk about neophyte, so doesn't mean that psychopath is the meaning, because psycho is referring to mental, neophyte is referring to new. Similar to that, you have a second one that called as a philander, right or not? Philander. So when we talk about philander, so we find out phil. Phil is what? Love, right? So like we can talk about wonder, right or not? Wonder. So we talk about philander. Wonder means roaming here and there, and philander is called as a love to roam here and there, right or not? So it means somebody who love. Philanthropist means love for mankind, right? But philander is what? Love for journey, isn't it? Somebody who loves means traveling is called as a philander. So, but neophyte doesn't mean that philander. We also have hoi polloi, right? Sometimes we draw some kind of a foreign term, foreign phrases. So they too have a means no work with the root word, because they are foreign terms, right? If I talk about hoi polloi, or you talk about carved diem, or you talk about prima facie, so what are they? Let's say that the hoi polloi faces a lot of problem, right? In compared to the means baron, or called as a tycoon, business tycoon. So business tycoon are called as a means those who are rich people, but hoi polloi are common and ordinary people, isn't it? So therefore, hoi polloi is indicating common people, so it doesn't have any idea, any relevance with the neophyte, right? So next is called as a greener. So as we find out that psychopath, then after philander and hoi polloi, we find out these three have no relation with the neophyte. We find out means greenhorn will be the next one, and this could be called as appropriate, isn't it? Now in that case, we can say greenhorn will be the synonym of neophyte, isn't it? Okay. Similar to that, if you talk about next antipathy, same amateur, neophyte. So remember that means there are many words, right? In the first class or in the second class, I pointed about we have the root words, we have the foreign terms, we have the historical terms, right? Those are known as eponyms, right? What do you mean by eponym? Eponyms are known as historical terms. Let's say that Reliance, right? The meaning of Reliance is what? It is the name of a company, right? It is also used in the sentence that called as a people rely, right? So it called as it depends or believe or hope, isn't it? So we also talk about the word called as a Cassandra. We also talk about the word called as a chimera, right? What are they? They are called as a mythological term, right? So, or they are called as a historical term. So, which have a particular meaning. They don't carry any of the root words, right? So, Why? Because they are nothing but the name of the character, right? They are name of the character. Like let's say that Titanic, it's a name of the ship, right or not? But the meaning of Titanic is what? Something very huge. You talk about the word called as a Herculean. It's a very Herculean task, right? Now Herculean have any root word? No. So Herculean is nothing but an eponym. Got my point? Similar to that, if I talk about the green herb, it could be known as one of the means eponym, right? Which will be known as a means neophyte, amateur, inexperienced, isn't it? Understood my point? Like I told you, means you can go for the elimination process, right? See, how do you find out means a suitable word, right, out of the option? Let's say that there are many processes. You can identify the word's meaning through the root, right? You can means find out the means word's meaning if you know that it's a foreign term, right? There are root words, there are means foreign terms, there are eponyms, right or not? So these are nothing but called as a means segregated. They have been segregated. Let's say that 50% or 60% words are belonging to means root words, either Greek word or Latin word, right? And with that Greek word or Latin word, you find out prefixes and suffixes are connected, right? So means they help you to what? Now they help you to make the root word, right, into negative or called as opposite or a negative word, right? So at the same time, another 10 to 15% words are known as means what do we say that? Eponyms, right? Historical terms. Got my point? So what I am trying to say that you cannot consider all the words have the root words. All the words have the root words. When you ask the question कैसे पता चलेगा कि इस word का meaning क्या है, तो obviously आपको उसके ऊपर पढ़ना पड़ेगा, right? If you don't read that, if you don't read the book, how will you know that the content inside it? Isn't it? So the first thing is called you need to prepare for the means acceptance of vocabulary, right? So what are the variety of vocabularies are present, and how these vocabulary means can be remembered. These vocabulary can be remembered means when we understand its origin. When we understand its origin, like I find out the word neophyte, the word new derived from the Greek word, isn't it? So it means it has the root word. But if I talk about the word called as a green herb, which is means nothing but the eponym, I want to see that whether it has the root word or not, right? So in that case, what I supposed to see? I supposed to look at the Google, or I supposed to search in the dictionary and try to identify, right? So obviously at the end of the dictionary it is given that the word green herb published in which year, right? In which of the means place its origin is, isn't it? Right or not? So that is why. So here also you would find out, and another thing is called as a tone. Whether the word has a positive tone or a negative tone. So if you find out neophyte, right, which is nothing but a means positive word, fresher or beginner, and you find out the options given here. The option given here like psychopath or philander or hoi polloi, right? They are negative in meaning or some are positive in meaning, right? So psychopath cannot be answered because it is a negative word. Right. Philander is referring to the means moving from one place to a love for traveling. So you find out hoi polloi is a foreign term, isn't it? And it means called as a common or ordinary people. So in that case you will eliminate these or not. You eliminate them. When you eliminate them, what do you find out? You find out 3 are eliminated. You have left 1. So this could be the answer to it, isn't it? It's not like the expert gives you the question with the option and he doesn't put the answer in the option. Right or not? So you can follow the elimination process. Got my point? Am I clear? So coming to the next one is called as antipathy. So when you talk about antipathy, what do you mean by antipathy? The word anti means called as against. It is a prefix, right? Antipathy, antidote, right or not? Antediluvian, right? But antediluvian is referring as a old or archaic. There are two anti. One is called as ANTI and another one is called as ANTE, right? Anti means against and ANTE, anti means called as before, right, or past, right or not? So in that case, if I talk about antipathy, so I find out anti means against and path means emotion, right? So in that case, if I talk about antipathy, it's called as somebody whose heart is or who dislikes others, or who hatred too much to others, right or not? So in that case, it is known as antipathy. So here you find out 4 options are there. Path means emotion. Like we talk about pathology, we talk about homeopathy, allopathy, sympathy, empathy, pathogenic, right or not? All these words are connected to the path. So the meaning of path is called as emotion. But there is another path which is a noun, which means way, right? But here we are talking about root words, right? So in that case we can say antipathy would be called as somebody who dislike others, isn't it? Now coming to the next one, what are the options given? The first option said quid pro quo, right? What is that? That called as a quid pro quo. So what is that quid pro quo? Quid pro quo, that called as it is a foreign term, isn't it? Quid pro quo. In that case, when you talk about quid pro quo, it says that people live in the country, right? That country which is democratic, right? In the form, democratic in the form. So that gives its people the chance of quid pro quo. The chance of quid pro quo. So in democratic country means the country gives what? The country gives equal chance, right? That's something called as equal chance. So in that case, you can say an equal exchange will be known as a quid pro quo, isn't it? Am I clear with this? Okay. So, but can it be called as a meaning of antipathy? Remember that if you want to learn the vocabulary, you try to learn the vocabulary also using in the sentence. Like I said, we live in the democratic country where the government gives the give the chances to the people to live in the quid pro quo nature. Quid pro quo nature. It means called as equal exchange, isn't it? So that can be a kind of an example where you use quid pro quo. So through that also you remember the meaning of the word is called as an equal exchange, right? So similar to that, but quid pro quo cannot be called as the meaning of antipathy. Next is called as aversion, right? So when we talk about aversion, what is that aversion? Verb means called as something which is true, right? Verify, right? So, but here when we talk about aversion, right? Verse is given, versify, right? So aversion means called as you do not like the thing in a very strong manner, strong disliking. So in that case, can it be the answer of means antipathy? Yes, because antipathy means hating too much disliking. So and aversion means also same. Now if I go for the next one is called as a propensity, right or not? So when I talk about propensity, right? The meaning of pro is called as a not, right? The meaning of pro is called as a not, or like we say prohibition, right? Progeny, right? In that case, your propensity is indicating about what? Like some people have the propensity, more propensity, or called as a kind of a propensity in compared to the others, like called as a kind of a tendency. What kind of a tendency? That you can say a particular behavior they do have. That can be called as a propensity, isn't it? So here you would find out propensity is called as a tendency to a particular behavior. The next one, omniscience. We know that omni means called as a present everywhere, or called as a something which is happen everywhere. So omniscience is called as a, somebody who have means all the knowledge. Omnipresent we can say, omniscience we can say. Omniscience, omniscience. So when we talk about omniscience, that's something called as somebody have the all knowledge about science, isn't it? Omniscience. So here you would find out antipathy, quid pro quo, aversion, propensity, omniscience. All these have means kind of a unique meaning. Antipathy, which have a prefix or root word. Quid pro quo, which is nothing but a foreign term. Aversion, which is known as a strong disliking, and root word can be called as averse, and prefix is a, right? So propensity, here you find out prop, right? So, or you talk about a tendency to a particular behavior, and omniscience we find out omni, which means having all or everywhere, right? So that is why we can talk about antipathy would be aversion, isn't it? Got my point? Moving to the next one, that's called as a philanthropic. We have already known about the word called as a philanthropic, which means a feel. Feel means called as a to love, right or not? So love for what? Anthropology. Anthropology means what? Now that's something study of mankind. Study of mankind, like we philanthropic, we have also misanthropic. The word misanthropic means what? That hating to the mankind, right? Opposite of philanthropic. So similar to that, here also philanthropic is called as a generally it uses for helping to the mankind. There are certain words you would find out. One is called as a claustrophobic, second is called as a pensive, right? And third one is called as a pernicious, and fourth one is called as a munificent. So do you find out the words are very interesting and also very rich, isn't it? Luxurious you can say. But if I talk about these words, the first one is stated claustrophobic, right? Now, do you have any idea about that? Phobia? What is that? Phobia means called as a fear, right? But what is that claustrophobic? So, if you talk about claustrophobic, it refers to, people who live in isolate, people who live in four walls, right? Having a kind of a nature of fear, right? So, here it is indicating that fear of enclosed place, right? So, that is called as a claustrophobic, isn't it? Like sometimes you would find out some people who live in jail, right? So made a kind of a sound, right? And do not always leave the light and try to live in the daylight area, right? Daylight room. So that why? Because they do have a kind of a claustrophobic. Even sometimes also at home you would find out family live or sleep at night using the light also, right? So having a kind of a fear, right? That say they feel like somebody's presence, right? That can be called as a kind of a meaning. So remember, when you find out the word and you want to enhance your vocabulary skills, your job is called as a create a story on that word in which you try to remember. right? Like if I talk about claustrophobic, you can point out that the story can be referred. People who find fear living in enclosed spaces, right? But that cannot be called as a philanthropic, right? So if I go for the B, that is called as a pensive, right? The meaning of pensive again called as a poetical term and as well as an eponym, right? Pensive. But if you look into that, penny, pen is a root word, but pen means called as a penny, money. Pen means penny, money, isn't it? So, but pensive doesn't means money. Pensive is referring as a thoughtful, right? Thinking about something, right? So that is why you can say that the poet decorates a beautiful poem, right, after a long hours of pensive moment, right? After a long hours of pensive moment means thoughtful moment, isn't it? So that is why you can talk about pensive is thoughtful. Next is called as a pernicious, right? So pernicious is generally referring to harm, right? And you can say that a kind of a destructive, isn't it? So we have a two type. One root word is there that is called a pun. Pun means punishment, right? Pun, pen. Pen is money. Pun is punishment, right? But here you would find out pernicious, which is a eponym in term, and that means also decimated or harmful, right? Or you talk about destructive in nature, right? Now, if you look into that, claustrophobic, pensive, and pernicious, they can't be called as a synonym of philanthropic. They will be different in meaning. So we have a last word that called as a munificent, right? Munificent, right? So the word munificent will be known as a philanthropic, isn't it? So can you form a word? Can you form a sentence using with munificent? We all know Mr. Azim Premji, right? We all know Mr. Azim Premji, the chairman or the founder of Wipro, right? Whose munificent nature towards the hoi polloi, right? Now you find out, you remember two words here. So you know that Azim Premji, who is the chairman or founder of Wipro, have the nature of munificent, right? That called as a philanthropic for his helping nature towards the hoi polloi, that called as a common and ordinary people, isn't it? So in that case, what you have done, you have made, remember, two words in a sentence, munificent and hoi polloi. Got my point? So in that case, you can call that person as the magnanimous in nature. Magnanimous means kindness, generous, charitable, right? Helpful person. Got my point? So what we have done here, we have known about all these words. Prolixity. What do you mean by prolixity? That's something called as a speak a lot, right? Verbosity, isn't it? So when you talk about annihilation, annihilation is called as a destruction, and here you would find out that called as a obliteration, right? Destructive, obliteration, isn't it? So when we talk about neophyte, we find out novice, amateur, and greenhorn, right? And when you talk about antipathy, you find out that called as a aversion, right? Neophyte and aversion antipathy and aversion means called as a dislike, disdain, dejected, decadent, and hatredness, loathsome, abhorrent. Remember, if you there are different approaches which we can follow, right? Through the root word, through the group word, like I pointed many of the group word, right, which have the same meaning, isn't it? So, and we also have a philanthropic, which means called as a magnanimous nature, or we talk about munificent, right? So, and we take the example of all these, isn't it? Now, coming to the next one, the next question, instruction is what? Now, identify the antonym or opposite in meaning. Got my point? Now, look into the first one. The first one is called as a momentous, right? What do we talk about the meaning of momentous? Moment. Think of it. You find out that means segregation. Moment us, right? OUS, which is a suffix. The meaning of OUS is called as a fulla, right? When you enjoy the full of that particular moment, it means you consider that moment is very important for you, right or not? So that is why we call it significant, right? Momentous is known as a significant, isn't it? So do we have significant? No, we do have insignificant. Opposite of it, right? So therefore insignificant will be the appropriate one. But there are also other words like monotonous, right? And impetus, or you talk about maternal, right? Yeah. So what do you mean by monotonous? Mono, single, right? It means if you are talking about monotonous, it means called as a single or boring or lazy, lethargy, slothful, right? All such kind of a word can be pointed as the monotonous. Got my point? Okay. Next one is called as impetus. The word impetus can be called as a rash, R-A-S-H, rash. Or you talk about impulsive, right? The word is taken from pulse. Impulse. Pulse means flow. Impulsive is called as a not properly flow, right? So rash, quick, you can say, right? So or called as a rough. Harsh also you can point out. So in that case, monotonous is a boring, right, or lazy. Impetus is called as a rash or impulsive, and maternal is called as a something which is relating to mother side, isn't it? Maternal uncle, right? So maternal is called as a from the mother side, paternal is father side, right? So and insignificant is called as a something which is not important, right? So we can form sentences, and through the sentence we can make a make a remember to these other words, right? People who do not have any work, they lead the monotonous life, right or not? So the impetus nature of the driver, right? Most of the time finding the collapse of his vehicle, right? So that called as a rash driving or impetus nature, that called as a rash driving nature, isn't it? So similar to that, you also find out maternal and insignificant. These are very common. Next is called as a morose, M-O-R-O-S-E. Now if I talk about morose, moribund, mortuary, morphine, so you find out the root word is called as a more. The meaning of more is referring to the body, right? So, and if you talk about morose, somebody who is means who lives a kind of a sad life, right? Gloomy. So morose can be called as a gloomy, right? So in that case, here you would find out Saturnine. Okay. Yeah, Saturnine. Can it be the answer? No. Saturnine is the synonym of it, right? And if you talk about sombre is also synonym of it, right? Sombre, Saturnine, these are nothing but called as a synonym meaning. And we know that means morose is called as a gloomy. That can be called as a kind of a sad life, or called as a gloomy in nature. Like you can say, the morose in life is common. The morose in life is common. It's a philosophical term, right? So the opposite of morose would be what? Happy, right? Do we have happy? We have jovial. Jovial means that called as a happiness, right? We also call it as a jostle, Jostle. Jostle means also happiness. Jovial, jostle. The you can say that after getting best, after getting hit into the top-notch college, right? The first day of his life is jovial in the campus, right? Or jostle in nature. So jovial and morals would be called as antonym to each other. But if I talk about misanthropic, philanthropic opposite, isn't it? Misanthropic is called as hating to mankind, philanthropic is loving to mankind, isn't it? Next, if you talk about the next question, which is called as a question 8, that is indicating about moral. The meaning of moral is what? Principle, right? Ethics, right? Ethic or moral. So moral opposite what? Immoral, right? Or amoral, right? Immoral or amoral. If I talk about that, moral means principles, ethics, everybody has the moral in their life, right? So principles in their life. So can we look into the options? The first option say unscrupulous, right? That's something called as unethical, right? Ethical, unethical. Scrupulous and unscrupulous, right? Scrupulous, like you can say, most of the time the ED means captured or investigated the unscrupulous behavior or unscrupulous nature of the banking officials, right? Or called as means as per the recent news, right? The unscrupulous banker was caught by the means vigilance officer, right? So that can be called as unscrupulous. So the word next is called as a righteous. Righteous will be synonym to moral principle. Can we talk about moribund? No, moribund is referring as a causing to die, right? Causing to die, moribund. Or dying is the synonym of moribund. We don't talk about death, we talk about principle, right? So in that case, moribund cannot be. Now the next one is called as a mnemonic, Mnemonic. Mnemonic, it's a process of again learning vocabulary, right? Mnemonic process. What is that mnemonic process? Now it is a kind of a process through which you remember the vocabulary. Let's say that you make a group of words and you want to learn those group of words. How will you remember those group of words? Simply by making A, B, C, D, like apathetic, benediction, then after condolence, dejected, or you talk about euphoria, F for fidelity. So these are alphabetically you remember the words, right? You can learn the words when you make it like a one word. In one word, each letter presents one word, right? Like we talk about fanboys, A for, A for and, N for neither nor, B for but, O for or, Y for yet, S for so, fanboys. So these are the process helping us to remember. So mnemonic means simply called as a remembering, right? Remembering the word. So here we find out moral becomes the opposite word of the moral is called as a unscrupulous. Now coming to the next one is called as obnoxious. So what is obnoxious? Nox, right? Nox is called as a harm, right? So in that case, obnoxious is something called as a, or you can say nox is some kind of activity that makes you feel good, right? Obnoxious is called as a no feeling good, right? No feeling good. Ob means against, so obdurate, oblivion. So obnoxious means somebody who feels unpleasant, right? So, or you can say that extremely unpleasant, right? So we have some of the words. Noxious, yeah, that is the opposite word, right? But again, if you talk about the next other words like B, paternal, obviously relating to father side, right? So pleasant, pleasant would be a good feeling, right? And negative, negative is so synonym. So we can say pleasant, but we find out obnoxious, noxious is more appropriate, right? So coming to the next one is called as a renegade, right? Renegade. The root word is called as a negate, N-E-G, neg. Neg means not, deny, negative. Negative means called as a not, right? Negotiation. Negotiation. You also say abnegation. A-B-N-E-G-A-T-I-O-N. Abnegation. So renegade, renegade is nothing but indicating about what? That's something called as abnegation, right? So, or you can say negate, negation, not, or called as a negative also, right? So renegade. In that case, the opposite of renegade would be somebody who is accepting. Renegade is called as a not, and the opposite would be called as a something which is accepting or affirmative. Look into the word called as a Philistine. So, what do you mean by Philistine? Phil का मतलब क्या होता है? Love, right or not? So, okay. Love for the, you can say that Philistine could be known as a love for the art and literature, right? Philistine. Look into the second one is called as a turncoat, right? Again, the beautiful word like hoi polloi, quid pro quo, right? Turncoat is or green hern, right? Like that, turncoat is nothing but called as a, you can say that an eponym, right? Not the, yeah, you can call it a foreign term, but at the same time, more than foreign term, it's an eponym, right? So the word turncoat is nothing but called as a traitor, right? Traitor or disloyal, right? So means you would find out the best friend of Julius is Marcus Brutus, but when he stabbed him, right? Julius was surprised and found out the turncoat of Marcus Brutus, right? So turncoat of Marcus Brutus means the perpetrator nature of means Marcus Brutus. The perfidy nature of Marcus Brutus means backstabbing. Traitor, disloyal or backstabbing. Isn't it? Again you find out another synonym of disloyal, right? So turncoat, but turncoat cannot be. Next is called as a patriot. Patriot means referring to love for the country. Love for the country. Isn't it? What is the option that you find out? Spell the word. Adherent. Adherent. Right. It means called as a abide by the rule. Right. So if you talk about that renegade, it means negate, not on the basis of the rule. So adherent, abide the rule. Got my point? You stay with the rule, right? So pacifist, somebody you can say that pacify, right? Pacifist, pacify, right? So pacific, right? The word pacifist is called as somebody who means who resolve the quarrel, right? Who resolve the quarrel, or we can say peacemaker. Do you understand the meaning of peacemaker? Right. So you find out the word called as a renegade, which will be negative in nature. So we can call it here. A couple of words are there. Philistine, which is referring to love for the art and literature. You find out turncoat, which is a disloyal, negative. So, but traitor cannot go with the renegade. It can be called as a same meaning of renegade. If you talk about patriot, patriot is referring to, what do we say that? Love for the country. Patriot, no. Patriot is, are called as adherent. Adherent is called as abide the rule. Patriot is called as a love for the country. Right. So in that case, we can go with the adherent. Right. But not the pacifist. Pacifists are the peacemaker. Right. That is what. Okay, coming to the next one, 11 to 15, you would find out, so you deal with what? All these words, right? So synonyms and antonyms. We also have another part or another activity in which we are going to discuss odd man out, right? What do you mean by odd man out? Now you would find out 4 words are given, and out of that 1 word is different from the other 3 family group, isn't it? So let's say that if you talk about the 11 number question, what does it say? Magnify, augment, aggravate, debilitate. Is it? So what do you mean by magnify? The word magna means called as a huge, right? So something excessive or big in size, like magnesium, magnanimous, right? So magna means something which is huge, right? Big. So option B, augment. Augment is called as an increase in size, augmentation, right? Acclivity, right? Or ascent. The meaning of augment, augmentation, acclivity, ascent, right? Like you can say that means the price of that product is gradually augmented, or means is ascending in nature, right? So whereas aggravate is called something called as a means excessive or called as a increase, gradually increase. And if you talk about debilitate, which is called as a decreasing, weakening, right or not? So if you observe that magnify, aggravate and augment can be known as a one family, which means increasing, right, in size, whereas debilitate is called as a weakening nature, odd one out. So question number 12, grandiloquent, pompous, ostentatious, malignant. Now, what do you mean by grand? Big, right? So, pompous, grandiloquent means something that you build, that you do it in a pompous manner or in huge manner. That is called as a grandiloquent. Here you would find out 2 root words are there. One is called as a grand, and another one is called as a loque. So, grandiloquent. Loque is called as a talkative. So, speech, loquacious, colloquial, eloquent, isn't it? So, grandiloquent is called as somebody who speak in a big in manner, right? बड़े बड़े बात करते हैं ना लोग, right? So, लेकिन होता कुछ नहीं है, isn't it? So, grandiloquent is something which is called as means speech in a means pompous manner, right? Or you do a kind of a marriage, you do it in a pompous, grandiloquent, but it is referring to word or speech. Next one, pompous. Pompous means also same. Next is called as ostentatious. The meaning of ostentatious is called as a showy. Now grandiloquent means also showy, because you talk a lot or in a big manner. So pompous is called as something that you do it in a big manner, and ostentatious is called as a showy, right? Now we find out 3 are called as a same in family. Next one is called as a malignant. So this becomes the odd word, because malign means called as a what? That harmful, right? Malign, malignant or malign, right? Malevolent. Lack of something or harmful, malevolent, malodorous, malpractice, then after malicious, malafide, isn't it? Malnutrition, isn't it? So in that case, malignant becomes the odd one, right? So understood, grandiloquent, pompous, ostentatious are showy, malignant is called as a harmful in nature, odd one. Now coming to the 13, you would find out banter, jollity and covenant and mirth. So if you talk about banter is generally we talk about a kind of a fun, right? So the banter can be insulted sometime. The banter can be insulted sometime, right? So in that case, the joke can be insult to someone, right? Or fun, or called as a merry, happiness. So then B is called as a jollity or jolly. So he always have a jolly mood. So jollity is called as a happiness, merry, right? So or called as a kind of a fun, isn't it? But when you go for the covenant, right? So what do we mean? What do we mean by covenant? So covenant is generally referring to promise or agreement, right? The covenant between the two party, right? The covenant between the two party means accomplished before the covenant between the two party before the judge, right? Successfully completed, isn't it? That can be called as a covenant. If you talk about mirth is called as a merriment, right? Even you have a lot of words you can say, enchantment, abracadabra, right? So the synonym words of mirth, banter, and we talk about jollity, right? Abracadabra also, A-B-R-A, abracadabra, abracadabra, right? So next one, so we find out which one is the odd one here. What is the odd one? Covenant, right? Which means promise or agreement. Question number 14, which is stated about limpid, recondite, abstruse and esoteric, right? Okay. Now when you talk about, find out the easy term here, abstruse, A-B-S-T-R-U-S-E. Ab means not, right? And when you talk about abstruse, it means it is difficult to understand something, right? That is called as abstruse. It means you are unable to understand, not understood, right or not? It is difficult to understand, become abstruse, means not understood. That is the meaning you draw. So if you talk about esoteric is also something which is unclear, unclarity, right? That is also unable to understand. If you talk about reconcile or recondite, when you talk about reconciliation and reconciliate means called as you are unable to agree with somebody. Recondite means you are unable to understand something. But that's recognition, C-O-G-N, right? C-O-G-N and C-O-N-D, different, right? So here recondite is unclear. So in that case you would find out abstruse, recondite and esoteric means called as something that you are unable to understand. But when you talk about the word called as a limpid, L-I-M-P-I-D, right? So limpid is called as anything which is transparent. If it is transparent, it means it is clear, right or not? Got my point? So limpid is the antonym of all these words that called as a recondite, esoteric and abstruse. Got? Now coming to the next one, this is known as again a very interesting word that is called as arachnophobia, ophidiophobia and triskaidekaphobia, right? So triskaidekaphobia, right? It's a very difficult word, but that's again called as a trisk, right? Triskaidekaphobia, like that you pronounce. So, and another one is called as a cynophobia. Do you have? We all know that phobia means fear, right? If I talk about arachnophobia, generally arcano is arc means rule, right? But here arcano is different. It refers to spider, right? So spider, you know, there are people who are also afraid of means a spider. So that is called as arachnophobia. Similar to that, if you talk about ophidiophobia, that's something. Ophidio is relating to snakes, right? And if you talk about triskaidekaphobia, it is indicating that in America there is a day and there is a number, right? So number 13 is something called as a considered curse or fearful, right? So number 13, and you also find out another one. What did I say? Day, Friday and number 13, these are called as a considered or fearful, right? So here number 13 is known as a triskaidekaphobia, right? So you have another one, cynophobia. This is known as a cyno is referring to ducks. Cyno is referring to ducks. In that case, cynophobia is called as a fear of ducks. Now, which one you would believe that odd one? Triskaidekaphobia. All are referring to animals, right? Fear of animals. Whereas this one is called as a number 13. Isn't it? Okay. Coming to 16 to 20 number questions. I hope you are clear with all these words and their meaning and how it is taken. Next is 16 to 20. These are nothing but the kind of a question which are referring to analogy based, right? Analogy means what? That's something called as just a relation, right? Relation between two words or two objects. Here you would find out the words are given, right? Verbal analogy. So like the word is given preposterous and bizarre. Preposterous and bizarre. So if I talk about preposterous or bizarre, that's something called as absurdity, right? Absurdity, stupidity, right? So that is the meaning of preposterous and bizarre, right? I don't like this preposterous moment, right? Bizarre moment, right? So in that case, both are synonym in nature. So what we need to identify? We need to identify the option that doesn't exhibit the same kind of a relationship. Isn't it? Got my point? So if I say preposterous bizarre is called as absurdity and stupidity. So which of the two words that doesn't exhibit the same kind of a meaning? Let's say that native, indigenous, right? So native, indigenous both are same, right? So indigenous is called as a local. Native is also local, right? Both are same. If I talk about amateur, debutant, right? So amateur is called as a fresher. Debutant means first time, start something, debut, right? So amateur, debutant both are synonym in nature. If I talk about profuse and copious, profuse is indicating fuse means fusion, infusion, confuse, profuse. Profuse means called as something excessive, right? So in that case, we find out what is that word? Copious. Copious is called as excessive, right? Let's say that a student must have a copious or profuse knowledge about the vocabulary to deal with the reading comprehension, right? So copious means excessive, profuse means also excessive. Both are synonym. Now we have left only option C, which means called as a apathetic, sympathetic. Sympathetic is a kindness, apathetic is called as a hatredness, no emotion, isn't it? So in that case, both are called as an antonym in nature, right? Coming to the next one is called as a pejorative, derogatory, right? So when we talk about pejorative and derogatory, What do we find out? Now, pejorative and derogatory, like sometimes we say, no, he will be punished for his derogatory remark, right? That comes something called as a disreputing or means destroying somebody's fame. It's called as a derogatory remark, isn't it? So that is what called as a derogatory. And if I talk about pejorative, pejorative means also same, right? The meaning of pejorative, derogatory, both are called as a disreputing. Got? Right. So if I talk about the word, the option that doesn't belong to the same is known as a legitimate and lawful. Legitimate means legal, law, and pellucid and explicit, right? If I talk about pellucid, we have the root word called as eluci, lucent, isn't it? Lucidity. So pellucid is known as a something which is very clear, something which is described properly, something which is transparent. So in that case, explicit will be appropriate, right or not? Pellucid and explicit, like you can say, the information has given in a pellucid state, right? Means clear state, right? So, or you can say that he has not, or the information has not explicitly stated, right? Means clearly stated, isn't it? So, pellucid and explicit both have the same meaning. Now, if I go for the next one, see nonchalant and nondescript, right? Nonchalant and nondescript. Nonchalant is known as a casual. Casual, you understand? Carelessness, right? Informal, right? Casual. So in that case, nondescript is what? That's something again called as a dull, right? But dull and casual both are different, isn't it? Dull is referring to lazy. Nondescripts are not properly describing, or uninteresting also you can point out. Whereas C indicates nonchalant and nondescript will be applicable here. Because if I go to the option D, it is called as a replete and abundant, right? Replete means called as something which is full up, right? Full up. Abundant, which is called as excessive in nature. So A, B, D are nothing but presenting same kind of a relationship. C is not. Okay. Question number 18. Impecunious and impoverished, right? Now here you would find out the root word is called as a peck. Pen and peck. Peck, peccadillo, right? Peccadillo. Peck means called as again money. Pen or peck both are called as money. So here you would find out impecunious and impoverished, right? Impoverished, right? So both can be called as a synonym in nature, right? Impecunious and impoverished. Now observe the words sequence and progression, right? Sequence is SEQ, the root word, sequence, consequence, right? So, and progression is called as a progress. Sequence, consequence and progression both are same. Cacophonous and dissonant. So, phone is the root word, phonology, phonetics, phoneme, phonology, isn't it? So euphony, cacophony. Euphony means good sound, cacophony means bad sound, isn't it? So here dissonant, so is also same, because sonic, sound. So you would find out sonic, right? So dissonant, cacophonous and dissonant. That's something called as a hard sound, right? On this is called as not a good sound. Next is called as a vanorous and magnificent. Vanorous means what? The meaning of vanorous is called as a wholesome or burdensome. एक ही के ऊपर सारा बर्डन है, वनरस. बट मैग्निफिसेंट का मतलब समथिंग विच इज चैरिटेबल और काइंडनेस, right, or called as excessive, right? So let's see that option D, retrogressive and retrograde, right? Retrogressive, retrograde. ग्रेड का मतलब क्या होता है? ऊपर जाना, राइट? सो बट retrograde का मतलब भी you can say that retro means step back, right? So retrogressive, grace का मतलब together, right? Together we move back. Retrograde means means go down or go back, right? Both are the same meaning. Retrograde, retrogressive. So we find out wondrous and magnificent will be the means odd one out, right? Because both are indicating a different idea. Next, arrogant and derisive. If I talk about arrogant and derisive, what do you mean by arrogant and derisive? Here you would find out rogue, R-O-G. हाँ, disdain भी आपका अगर देखा जाए, disdain means what? There's something called as disheartened, right? So, what do you find out? Arrogant and disdainful, right? Arrogant and disdainful. So, if you look into the option, interminable, incessant. Both are negative. Arrogant and disdain. Both are negative in nature. Arrogant means somebody who is, hating to somebody and rude behavior. So disdain means also dislike, isn't it? So interminable and incessant. So if I talk about incessant, says is called as just to stop, right? Cessation. Right. So you can say that means the mob was stop doing, stop protesting against the government. The mob, or you can say the crowd, says its protest against the government, right or not? So the opposite of says or cessation is called as incessation, which means continuation, right? So in that case, interminable means what? Like we find out the root word is called as a term. Term means what? That called as an end, right? Inter means what? No end, continue, right or not? Like terminology, termination, right? Terment. So interminable and incessant both are called as the same kind of a meaning. If I go for the next one, patrician and aristocratic. So patrician and aristocratic, where you find out male become the head, right? Aristocratic is also called as rich people become the head, right? So both are against synonym in nature. Obsequious and sycophantic. Obsequious. So when we talk about SEQ, right? So that obsequious and sequence you pointed, no? So when you say SEQ, SEQ is called as a sequence, right? Consequence, right? Ob means not, right? So you are not going with, not in a sequence, right? So irregularity you can say, but sycophantic means showy, right? Now also we can talk about, we have okay. Moving to the discussion of that, obsequious. Ob means something which is not. But beside obsequious, what else is there? Sycophantic. Okay, let's move to the option D. What does option D state it? Yeah, go ahead. Quiescent and compliant. Quiescent is called as a quiet. Quiet. Quiet means silent, right? Okay. And compliant means something like which is what do we say that? Comply with a certain kind of a matter, right? Or called as a you agree, right? So quiet and compliant both cannot go together, right? So because we find out interminable incident both are synonym in nature. We talk about patrician and we find out aristocratic both are also same. We have a obsequious, but obsequious have a different in nature. Sequence is okay. Obsequious is called as going with a not in a sequence. Sycophantic is called as a showy. Dikhawa karna. Okay. Can you check it obsequious? Obsequious, OBSEQU, then after you would find out IOUS. Psychopathic means similar in nature, no? Okay. So here the root words SEQ is not worked as it is. Okay. Next one is called as a quiescent and compliant would be the answer to it, isn't it? Now next is called as a commiserate and sympathize, isn't it? Commiserate and sympathize. So commiserate and sympathize both have also same kind of a meaning. We have an option A, B, C, D. The first one is called as a sympathize. You understand? Commiserate both means called as a relating to the emotion, right? Option 1, transmit and broadcast, same. The root word of the transmit is trans, beyond, and broadcast is called as a presenting something all over. Negate and contradict. Negate means not, contradict means also against. Presage and stipulate. So the word pre means before, right? Presage is indicating a kind of a purity or foretell, storytelling, right? So some story you are telling, foretell, story. So presage and foretell would be same. But what about stipulate? Stipulate means something which is set down. SETDOWN, set down, or you can say that prescribe. Set down or prescribe. So presage and stipulate cannot be. Stipulated, particular, you can say particular time or date. So whereas presage is called as a story. Both are odd one or different. So mortify and humiliate. So mortify and humiliate is both are indicating about humble, right? Modesty or humble, isn't it? Got my point? So coming to the some more questions, we'll try to complete this discussion. So 21, right? What is it given? Can you read it? The nouveau riche, right? The nouveau riche are the people who have recently become rich and like to show how rich they are in a very obvious way. So I think you can draw the meaning of this phrase, nouveau riche. Nouveau means new. N-O-U, here it is given, no? N-O-U-V-A-U, nouveau. It's called as a French phrase, which means new, right? And riche means rich, newly rich man who is trying to show, isn't it? will be known as a novatiate. So what you call to it? Yes.
Yes.
Go to the second one. A pacifist is a person who believed in extreme nihilism. Extreme nihilism means what? Extremely harmful, right or not? Or extremely a person who believed to extremely harmful to others, right or not? So in that case, a pacifist. But pacifist is a person who is a peacemaker, not a harmful person. So that's why it is a false. This is known as a so one word substitution, right? Okay, going for the question number 23 to 26. So what does it say? The directions for question is what? Each of the following questions has a sentence with the two blanks, right? Two blanks. Given below each question are four pair of words. Choose the pair that best complete the sentence, right? Got the point? So it is a fill in the blanks question. So when you get the fill in the blanks question, what is your job? Now first you read the statement despite the blanks are given, so that you draw a kind of a kind of a meaning of that statement, and you can assume what that blank needs to be inculcated, right? So needs to be inculcated. Let's say that the statement here stated his latest movie is a dash vision of the world of the future, and so it has been dashed by many religious organization. Right. Now what do you draw from this statement without looking to the option? What is the meaning that you can draw? His latest movie is a dash vision of the world of the future, and so it has been dashed by many religious organizations. Maybe a kind of a good vision, right? But at the same time, the second one is stated it has been dashed by many religious organizations. Many religious organizations. So the first one is given monolithic, right? What is the meaning of monolithic? That's something called as a massive, right? Ridiculed. Ridiculed is called as a criticized, right? So you can say, think of it, try to implement into it. His latest movie is a massive vision or huge vision of the world of the future. So it has been ridiculed by many religious organizations. Or if I talk about B, his latest movie is a negative or harmful vision of the world, right? Harmful vision of the world means that it will badly impact on the world, right? So of the future. So it has been castigated by many religious organizations. Castigated का मतलब भी criticize होता है, right? The next one, legible. His latest movie is a legible vision. So legible means what? Appropriate, right? But vision of the world of the future, and so it has been metamorphosed. Metamorphosed, meta means beyond, and so it's something called as a beyond the people. It means called as a spiritual, right? If I talk about his latest movie is a legible vision of the world of the future, so it has been metamorphed by many religious organizations. No, it doesn't actually fill. So 4, his latest movie is a matronly vision of the world of the future, and so it has been modified, caused to feel embarrassed. So you can say that the first blank is stated about his latest movie is relating to the married woman vision of the world. Matronly, no? Matronly is called as a married woman, right? So whereas Mortified is called as a cause to feel very embarrassed. So D doesn't also. So I think it will go with the option B. Why? Because his latest movie is means a badly impact to the world in future. Right. Therefore, what happened? Many religious organizations criticized to his movie. Right. That's why option B can be corrected. What do you say? So go to the second one, 24. The captain's dash ultimately led to his dash in front of everyone. Right. The captain's dash ultimately led to his dash in front of everyone. Now, if I talk about the options, competence, repudiation. So the captain's ultimately dash ultimately led to his dash in front of everyone. So the first half is given competence, that ability, magnanimity, it's called as a huge heart. Then after colloquialism, that's something called as a usage of the words, and megalomania, right? So, and the second part is called as a repudiation, approbation. Approbation means called as approval. Litigation means called as a conflict. Mortification is called as a mortify, right? So, what do you think that? Mortify means embarrassed also. The captain's ability ultimately led to his repudiation in front of everyone. Repudiation is called as a negative, no? Now, and one side you are saying ability, the other side you are saying repudiation, cannot go, right? Either you talk about the positive both or negative both, right? Now, look into that. The captain's magnanimity or charitable nature ultimately led to his approval in front of everyone. That doesn't also join together. The captain's colloquialism ultimately led to its litigation, conflict in front of everyone. So again, one side you are saying he spoke, and for each he went into the conflict. Let's see that. Go to the option D, megalomania, mortification. The captain's mega means something called as a going beyond, right? Going beyond his means interest, right? Ultimately led to his embarrassment in front of everyone. So you feel embarrassed before the others when you are putting your own as the importance, right? Own interest. So that's why option D could be the best one. Let's go to the 25. 25 said, dash is not the proper response answer to government's policies as this leads to dash. So dash is not the proper response answer to government's policies. Now if I talk about innovation is not the proper response answer to government policies as this leads to nonchalant. Nonchalant means casual. So next is novelty is not the proper response answer to government's policy. So if government is making any of the policy, so government needs to means answer for that. Government cannot means go against that or cannot leave it in the midst, right? So novelty and innovation cannot go because you have already stated that government's policies, right? So quandary is called as a confusion, right? So resignation will be appropriate because resignation is not the proper response answer to government's policy, right? So government has made some policies, you cannot resignate or called as a terminate or reject it, right? So and then after proper response answer to government's policies as this leads to no difference. If you terminate it, there will be no harm to government's policies, isn't it? So it is not for one, it is for all, isn't it? So that's why option D would be appropriate. Question number 26. Can you point out 26? The Mongol people were caused by dash conflict until Genghis Khan dashed them. Yeah, this would be a very interesting one. The Mongol people were caused by internecine conflict. So that's something called as a conflict occurred between them, and Genghis Khan pacified them. Means Genghis Khan become the peacemaker, right or not? That is what it is stated. So once I see pacified, I pointed. And how did I draw the answer? Once I read the statement and I assume, means what it would be, right? So others cannot be. Okay. Coming to another one, this is close test. You find out certain words, and 34 and 35. Okay, take it all these 27 to 35 as your home task, or if you want, you can do that. आज आपका दिमाग मैंने बहुत खा लिया नहीं? But you are also attempting CAT exam, preparing for the CAT exam, isn't it?